Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Big Idea Podcast. My name is Eric Bramlett. I am joined by Tammy Melchien. Tammy, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Are you ready for Christmas, Tammy?
I am. Still wearing short sleeves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Cubs are still playing, so
crazy.
Clearly it is time for Christmas. And every year we go through this. I know I personally go through it where I freak out about the fact that because we plan so far in advance, it means that it is Christmas time. In August/September.
The one good thing is week 1 is still in November.
That's interesting. That is a good thing. Now, is that Thanksgiving weekend?
Yes.
Is that the Sunday after the Thursday?
Yes, because that's when Advent starts. And this is Advent Conspiracy.
Right into the title. She doesn't waste any time. Enough with the small talk. It is a series called Advent Conspiracy. And actually, I do want to note that this series leads us up to Christmas Eve. Though technically what we'll be talking about and what we'll be planning in this big idea does not include Christmas Eve.
Nope.
And that's because Christmas Eve into Christmas Day is kind of going to be a standalone week. I don't know if there's anything, I mean, we don't have necessarily content on that.
But we've done, a few years we've done Easter at Community where it wasn't, this is kind of Christmas at Community.
Yeah, so it'll feel like that, but it's also important to note and go ahead and get you to be thinking this way, especially you arts directors, that Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, Sunday morning, will be the same service. It'll be the same big idea content, the same artists, everything that you plan for Christmas Eve or the 23rd, depending on when you are doing services, is the same content, the same experience. And so when we get to the point where we're brainstorming that, let's just keep that in mind to make sure that we're all clear about what's happening for Christmas Day, Sunday morning, because that is happening this year. But enough about that. Let's get into these 4 weeks that lead up to the Christmas at Community experience, and it is something called the Advent Conspiracy. What's the overall big idea for this series, Tammy?
The overall idea is this... No. The overall big idea is, we all know Christmas can be a chaotic, hectic time, and we want to conspire this year to not miss it, to not miss the true meaning and purpose and wonder of Christmas. And so overall, we're going to look at how, when you think of the very first Christmas, there were really just a small handful of people who actually experienced Christmas. Most people missed it. You just have Mary and Joseph, the shepherds, the wise men. The majority of people living that time had no idea what was going on. And so we're going to try to not miss it this year, but instead almost enter into the nativity and experience Christmas the way that it's meant to be experienced.
All right. Well, I'm game for that.
All right.
So week 1 then, as you mentioned earlier, is the beginning of Advent, and it's right after Thanksgiving, and we are talking about worship fully, what it means to worship fully.
The idea with this first one is when you look at the characters in the first Christmas story that didn't miss it, that actually saw what God was doing, almost all of them have their response to that is to worship. And whether they do it like Mary through the Magnificat and worshiping through song, whether it's the shepherds who drop everything, drop their job, and they come and they just give this time to focus on what is happening, or whether it's the wise men who come and they give gifts to Jesus. And so one of the ideas for this, now obviously we haven't planned this yet, but one of the ideas is that this first week is about worshiping fully, that we would maybe try to make this a very experiential service where looking at those 3 characters, it could almost be 3 mini talks separated by some space.
Interspersed by music, some other expressions of worship, things like that.
Yeah. So the initial thought is possibly, if you look at Mary, her kind of focus of worship was through song, so maybe there's a worship set with that. Where the shepherds, it was to disengage from their work and focus on Jesus. And so maybe there's some type of reflection thing that could be combined with communion. And also, obviously, the wise men in giving could be giving back to God.
I was thinking if there's anything we could connect with the wise men.
Well, we could do something new in our services and give back to God.
Okay. Some of our attenders. That could be really awesome.
Oh,
If
that was an unintentional
did it.
slam, but
Oops.
you know.
It's okay. We'll cut it out
All
in
right.
the edit. I love that idea. I love the idea of moving in and out of the teaching, and really kind of, I mean, as you see this progress, you see these kind of 4 different ways of expressing what it means to conspire to not miss Christmas. So worship fully is the first one, and then our second week, and boom, we are into the craziness of Christmas, December 4th, and this week is called Spend Less. I don't understand, Tammy. Christmas is when I spend more, and then I have to pay all the bills in January.
Yes. So this will be a little bit of a, we're going to use Joseph, but not really as the main text. It's more Joseph as the springboard into this idea.
Okay.
Because again, Joseph is someone who didn't miss that first Christmas, but you see what Joseph was called to in the Christmas story was something incredibly countercultural. I mean, the fact that his fiance was pregnant, not by him.
Right.
I mean, and you can imagine, like, the people in his life probably didn't understand why he was sticking by her.
Right.
I mean, he was...
And even when he was not going to stick by her, he was still going to be countercultural in the way that he handled the divorce.
Yes.
Because he was planning on doing that quietly in a way so as not to shame her, which was clearly even countercultural in that moment.
So if we enter into the nativity through Joseph's story, we might ask ourselves, well, what would be the most countercultural way for us to experience Christmas? And in American culture, it would be to reject the consumerism consumption. Now, this doesn't mean that you don't buy any gifts.
Right. Well, that's what my church told me. I don't
Yes.
have to buy you any gifts. And so, in your face.
So everyone that hasn't done their shopping at this point would be like,
everybody cry. Yeah.
But yet, a key part of this could be the parable or the part from Luke 12 that Jesus says when he says, "Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in abundance of possessions." And you think about that. We know that, yet every December we try to make it happen again through just overspending and trying to do the big thing financially and all of that. And so this week is going to be the one that we really do challenge ourselves to look at how much consumerism plays a part in our lives and because of our culture, and maybe challenge one another just to think about experiencing this Christmas different. Again, it doesn't mean that you're not going to, as we'll see next week, it doesn't mean that you're not going to give gifts to one another, but yet what does it mean to, like, be a little bit more responsible or wise in how we do that. Yeah, whether that's budgeting. Yeah. We may also include some stuff about, spending, knowing what your dollars are supporting, like spending, being a responsible consumer. And also, just thinking about, for those that are parents, what are we teaching our kids about this holiday when it's just, when we just buy into this consumerism and maybe don't think about some of the other needs around us. And so how can we find a better balance of that?
Yeah, no, that's good.
So, yeah.
All right. And then that segues right into the next week, right? So then week 3, we talk about if we're spending less, then what does it look like counterculturally? To give more.
To give more. And this week we'll really focus on the meaning of the incarnation. So when you think about entering our nativity story, this is about the baby that's in the manger and what it really means that God is with us and that God gave Jesus to us on that very first Christmas. And so the heart of this is to say, okay, one of the things I love about this idea is that, God gave at Christmas. And so giving gifts is actually a pretty good way to celebrate Jesus. But there's something about the way God gave. God gave relationally. He gave himself. And so, it's a challenge to us to say, okay, how do you give more of yourself? How do you give relationally and not just the, I felt obligated, so here's a gift card.
Right,
kind of way. And so there's some ideas, on the map here about, God giving his presence. God gave a gift that was personal. He gave a gift that was costly. And one of the things I was telling Eric before was that there's some great, we're looking at the Advent Conspiracy book as a guide for this, and there were some great examples, like an example of giving yourself relationally. One of them they shared was a father who gave his high school senior daughter 2 blank journals for Christmas. And the gift was that she was to journal the next year, her last year at home and her first year at college, of what she was experiencing, and he was going to fill the second journal with her last year or last semester and first semester at college of what he was experiencing, and the next Christmas they would exchange them. So we'll make all the fathers of seniors start shaking in the audience. But the idea is, if someone said, "What is the most meaningful gift you ever given? You ever received?" Yeah. I think for a lot of us, we're like, I don't even remember what I got last Christmas.
Right.
Because we don't give relationally.
Yeah, it's hard to iPad probably.
Yeah,
iPad.
That was
no. I'm just kidding. I remember that happened.
But if you gave Sadie that,
I don't.
10 years from now,
Tammy.
she would remember
Don't do it. I know. Don't do it.
Well, no, you can come up with your own relationship.
No, I know. You're right. But
Yeah.
it still doesn't change the fact that she's a senior and she's leaving. Thank you. All right. That is a good one. Darn it. And then that gets us to week 4. It is the week before Christmas, and all through the house, we have spent less, we've given more, and now we are going to love all.
We are going to love all. And even though we will have alluded to the shepherds, one aspect of the shepherds earlier in the series, this week is again going to be entering in it more fully through their experience. And this really is a helping people find their way back to God message, with two kind of sides of that. One is the realizing that Jesus came to love everyone, and so this is for people that might be going maybe it's time for you to realize that and to find your way back to God. And we're using the shepherds because the tradition, the understanding of them in the culture is they would have been low people on the totem pole, but yet God announcing the birth to them shows that the good news is for everybody.
Yes.
And so we want people to understand the good news is for you. So and you have an opportunity to find your way back to God.
I love it.
But the second part, the shepherds then turn around and tell everyone what they had seen. And so understanding also that it's about Christmas is about us sharing.
We are loved to be loved.
Yes.
To love.
To
others,
love all.
Yeah.
And which will be a great challenge for people to invite people to come to Christmas Eve and Christmas services the next weekend as part of the way that we can do that.
Love it. All right. Well, this is good. I'm excited about Christmas now.
Yay.
It didn't take long for me to get
Now
really
we just
excited
have to
about Christmas.
Do it all.
Well, sure. Yeah. Well, there's that. All right. Well, I am excited about this, and I think, we all know that, Christmas is a time where more and more people make their way into the churches that they call their home, whether or not they visit them, those homes in October or August or not. And so it is an important time, and hopefully, these big ideas will, strike a chord so that those attenders, those people who are in the Christmas and Easter rhythm, are able to stop and reflect and look at the relationship that Jesus is offering and see that it's more than just kind of a twice-a-year affair. So be praying for that at your location and at all of our locations, and we're excited to see what brainstorms are going to arise as a result. So for Tammy, I've been Eric, and this has been the Big Idea Podcast. So long, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.